Colleagues, Minister. I welcome the bill. I think it's appropriate in this first session back after the recess that we have a bill enjoying such cross-party collegiate support, a non-contentious bill as the Minister has suggested. I propose to briefly suggest a number of amendments or a number of policy areas that may be considered at further readings of the bill. In no particular order, the Minister has mentioned, and I welcome, and my colleague Deputy Troy has welcomed as well, the end-of-life provisions. I raised a PQ on this area on the 8th of June, the issue being where end-of-life vehicles, not just in Ireland but in the UK, can be taken off the road, can be warranted by the insurers as being end-of-life, but can reappear into circulation because of paperwork and internet sales and different devices. Not particularly difficult, actually, on the part of the dealers to circumvent. I've sat in a dealer's yard and he showed me exactly how it's done. So there's actually no science behind it, unfortunately, but something that needs to be regulated and controlled. And I would suggest, I know this bill includes provisions for inter-jurisdictional transfer between the UK and Ireland. I think of certain data, I would suggest that the end-of-life vehicle history also be included in that transfer. Maybe when the Minister is preparing that amendment, that might be included, or we might have a look at that ourselves. I'd say, moving on, just taking a couple of miscellaneous provisions. I know the operation, and I come in from a local authority into this House, of parking bylaws is often an issue of contention, where local authorities struggle to make minor changes to bylaws without having to go through a whole rigmarole of consultation, which can take months, and the net effect of that is that an overly rigorous application of the laws actually applies. And I know there has been attempts to have this, it does require legislative change, something I would ask the Minister to consider, again under the miscellaneous provisions, to make it easier for local authorities to make minor a disability bay, for example, or changing a space allocation. Along a similar vein, I welcome the availability of the lower speed limit in residential areas. I think it's very appropriate. We're all familiar with the tragic circumstances referred to as Jake's case and the family involved. I agree with the Minister, 20 kilometres would seem extreme as a default, but I would suggest that the possibility is there. But along the same lines as the parking bylaws, I would suggest that the speed limit review is another area where local authorities certainly appear to struggle and appear to put up a protest. Perhaps they don't protest too much, but they certainly do. And it takes months and maybe years for these kind of things to go through the process. Far more difficult, I think, than it needs to be. I've mentioned the end-of-life vehicles. I suppose just one point on that. My understanding is that Gardaí at present can identify a stolen vehicle quite readily. However, they cannot identify an end-of-life vehicle. It seems that it could be done that way. Also, if insurers were in a position to provide their own end-of-life facilities, it may stop these unscrupulous dealers from emerging, taking them, playing that role. In the context where, and straying into the area of insurance, where a driver can find it difficult to insure a perfectly roadworthy but vehicle over 15 years old, which we heard about in the motor insurance debate a while ago, it seems particularly abhorrent that somebody with an end-of-life vehicle that had been previously written off can actually drive it. And again, just to raise that. The penalty points database, we all welcome the fixed charge system and the improvements to the road traffic and road safety in recent years. It could go further, and again, straying into motor insurance, we saw how it could be and should be made available. Those data should be available across insurers in a state-managed way, and I think that's something that would also address the issues we have with motor insurance and the cost of motor insurance. Finally, and conscious of the time, but the issue of clamping is another one that may sit under miscellaneous provisions. I understand there was some legislation before the House in the previous stall. I'm not sure whether it actually was ever enacted. Clamping can be a blight in many town centres and commercial environments. Often it's on private property, but unscrupulous, ruthless and opportunistic operators can play havoc, and they can destroy the commercial heart of many towns in doing so. So there was some legislation to cap the maximum fees being charged, and to place some conditions and things like signage and prior warning and caveats were all included. I don't think those provisions were enacted. I'll have to have a look at that, but it may be an area for a miscellaneous provision, and I may put some amendments forward on that myself at the next stage.
Thank you very much, Minister. Deputy.